Carvana, the $44 billion house of cards. What if I told you Carvana helped drive used car prices up higher than they should be? What if I told you that they were doing it by shady loan approvals, insider deals, and financial smoke and mirrors? Well, buckle up because it's actually worse than you think. Carvana promises what most people think they want. Direct to consumer on the used market, no haggling. Heck, they'll even pick up your trade and deliver your car to you and then let you try it out for 7 days. Sounds perfect, right? Carvana allegedly has 3 major problems. They've got fraudulent loan approvals, they've got what some say looks like shady insider trading going on, and the thing that bugs me the most, which is I think they are sort of rigging used car prices to elevate them. Between Carvana, CarMax, AutoNation, they really control a ton of inventory, along with new car prices being high as well. So how is Carvana manipulating the used car prices? Well, the short answer is they are allegedly approving 100% of the loan applications they received. I'll go through that here shortly. So there are 2 major players at Carvana. The first one is the CEO of Carvana, Ernest Garcia III, and then his father, Ernest Garcia II, who owns Drive Time. It gets really shady. Recently, there was a 4-month investigation by Hindenburg Research, including extensive document review, 49 interviews with industry experts, former Carvana employees, competitors, and related parties of the company. And they all seem to point to the same thing. They say Carvana's turnaround is basically a mirage. And really, the warning signs were there from the beginning. Between 2020 and 2021, Ernest Garcia II, that's the father of the CEO, he sold $3.6 billion in stock. Yes, that's billions. So what happened next? Well, as you can see here, the stock plunged 99%. Everyone assumed they would go bankrupt, but that's not what happened. Carvana's stock rose again, as you can see in this graph, soaring 284% in 2024. Everybody believed the worst was over until this research came out. So what's Carvana's foundation? It's basically a house of cards built on subprime auto loans. Get this, nearly half of their loans went to non-prime borrowers, and even more shocking, 80% of their recent non-prime deals were classified as deep subprime. It's the riskiest category possible. This is why their stock keeps taking plunges, and it's in the news all the time. A former Carvana director even said, "I don't think the model is much different than what we saw in the early 2000s mortgage-backed security crisis." The research uncovered $800 million in loan sales to suspected undisclosed related parties, along with details on how accounting manipulation and lax underwriting have fueled temporary reported income growth, all while insiders cash out billions in stock. And even before the investigation happened, Carvana was valued way higher than the peers like CarMax and AutoNation. They're trading at 854% higher sales multiple than AutoNation and CarMax. That's crazy. Meanwhile, Carvana had roughly $4.8 billion in net debt that is junk rated by rating agencies. And here's something crazy. For every $1 in net income that Carvana reported, the company added $139 in market cap. That's a $34 billion market cap increase. With Carvana shares up 42x, the father, Ernest Garcia II, guess what he did? He sold another $1.4 billion in Carvana stock as this graph goes up. Almost 26% of Carvana's gross profit consisted of the sales of their consumer auto loans to third parties, largely in the riskiest subprime and deep subprime space, which is not good for who they're selling them to either. And you know that that's just going to lead to another bailout down the road, just like we saw in 2008. That's where this is headed. So, who did they sell these loans to? Right there. Carvana has relied on a purchase agreement with Ally Financial. They sold $3.6 billion of vehicle loans in 2023. That's 60% of their total originations. And you can even see from this graph that Ally stock sort of mirrors what's going on with Carvana stock because they're so in bed with them. Carvana even tried to diversify who buys these junk loans. So they tried to get Wells Fargo to purchase the loans. A Wells Fargo senior manager said, as we dug into it, the more we learned, the less we liked about it. They're talking about Carvana. Now, how crazy is that? It's not like Wells Fargo has a squeaky clean reputation. I mean, they've done some shady stuff in the past. When Wells Fargo's saying, hey, this is too much for me, That's bonkers. In September of 2024, Ally's stock fell 20% after warning investors that on the retail auto side, our credit challenges have intensified. They're talking about Carvana. An Ally executive told them, we've pulled back from Carvana pretty significantly in 2024. Ally's Carvana purchase commitments extended all the way to January 2025. And it gets even more shady. So Ally Financial pulled back. And guess what? A new unnamed buyer quietly emerged exactly when Carvana needed it. In the past 2 quarters, Carvana sold $800 million in loans to the unrelated third party. The mystery buyer made up 18.3% and 16.3% of the total loan sales in Q2 and Q3 of 2024. So this investigative report found that lien filings revealed the buyer is actually a trust affiliated with Cerberus Capital, where, oh, guess what? Carvana director Dan Quayle is chairman of global investments at Cerberus Capital. So that indicates the buyer is an undisclosed related party, contrary to what Carvana claims. So almost 44% of Carvana's loans it sells in these deals are non-prime. Over 80% of the recent non-prime deals have a weighted average FICO score in the deep subprime range. That's the riskiest level possible. In addition to that, Carvana's subprime loans had the highest borrower extension of any subprime auto issuers. Oh, it gets better. So in order to offer all these extensions, Carvana needed a loan servicer. Well, that loan servicer is an affiliate of DriveTime. And guess who DriveTime's CEO is? Well, that's Carvana's CEO's father, Ernest Garcia II. Ooh, shocker. The report basically says that Carvana seems to be avoiding reporting higher delinquencies by granting loan extensions instead. They approve people that probably shouldn't be approved for loans, and then they extend them through this shady dealing. So I think this goes a long way to keep used car values higher than they should be. Think about it. Instead of having to mark down inventory, Carvana can just offload cars to DriveTime at a premium. So for the last 3 fiscal years, Carvana has generated over $105 million in revenue from selling to DriveTime. And this is crazy. A former Carvana director responsible for their wholesale inventory told the investigation that selling to DriveTime is a lever that's not talked about. It's kind of like Fight Club. There are certain things we don't talk about. We don't talk about DriveTime. How bonkers is that? And this Greg Sullivan guy, well, he's supposed to be like an independent member of Carvana's audit committee, and he's had a questionable past. He was suspended by the New York Stock Exchange because he sent money to Carvana's CEO's father, even though a legal order specified prohibiting him from doing so. And if you look at his profile here, look at his ties. He has ties to Carvana's CEO's father, Ernest Garcia II. He has ties to DriveTime. Now, this is all allegedly reported by Hindenburg Research, but boy, follow the money. If we go back to 2023, a former executive confirmed that Carvana would move large amounts of money and income around quarter to quarter, so they would hold loan sales over the quarterly line. And this is how the father and son combo can kind of pump and dump things and make a ton of money. So in this example, on May 4th, Carvana reported in quarter 1, their 2023 earnings show a 41% year-over-year decline in sales. And you can see the stock just plummeting. And then the CEO, Ernest Garcia, the CEO of Carvana, blamed the delayed loan sales on uncertainties in the securitization market. Then as you can see, against that whole backdrop that they painted, then the stock was depressed. The Garcias signed an agreement to purchase $126 million in Carvana stock on July 17th, 2023. Then you can guess what happened. 2 days later, Carvana announced that they had the best quarter in company history. Oh, isn't that great? Hindenburg Research came to this conclusion. We think the Garcias will leave shareholders with nothing. Many business leaders look for win-win situations where shareholders, partners, and everyone that creates value can then derive value from those contributions. Others treat business more parasitically, viewing every counterparty as an opportunity to extract as much as possible, leaving others with nothing. At any point in Carvana's incredible first run, the Garcias could have de-risked the balance sheets by raising significant capital at its then lofty valuations. Instead, facing an impending collapse, They hyped their prospects and raised modest capital while Garcia II sold $3.6 billion in stock. As the numbers tanked, they seemingly pulled accounting levers to make them even worse. This enabled Carvana to extract a renegotiated debt package that wiped out principal and pushed off cash interest, essentially stiffing lenders before pulling levers to kick off the next big rally. With the numbers rocketing higher in the second incredible run, the company again could have de-risked the balance sheet by raising significant capital at lofty valuations. They could have made it sustainable, but instead, the priority again seemed to be raising only modest capital while enabling Garcia II to sell another $1.4 billion in stock. In the end, the Garcias will bank millions. For customers, they face the prospect of inferior or potentially dangerous cars due to cost-cutting measures, favoring the bottom line over quality and safety. For shareholders and debt holders, we expect they are in for rough times ahead. P.S. We want to thank literally dozens of people who reached out to us, imploring us to look into Carvana, from the used car dealers to industry experts across the country to the average investor that sniffed out something or many things that weren't quite right. And then, of course, they go on to say that the use of this research, use it at your own risk. In no event should Hindenburg or any of its affiliated parties be liable for any direct or indirect trading losses caused by information in this report. Do your own research. I will link this in the description below. Obviously, I could only go through the highlights, as you can see here. And this company, Hindenburg Research, has actually had 2 other investigations. And I believe those companies both went out of business maybe a year or 2 later. So their research has been actually proven to be pretty accurate so far in their past research. Carvana claims that Hindenburg Research is just trying to short the stock, get it to drop, and basically do what Carvana CEO and the father was doing. All of this centralized power of dealerships is going to be bad for you. I know people think that they want things like Carvana. They want a vending machine. They don't want to haggle. They don't want a salesman. That's all fine and dandy, but you have to look at what's going to happen. When Carvana can control the auction market, they actually just bought an auction house recently. They can control the prices. Well, now they can give more for a car, and then they can sell cars for really more than they're worth. And what does that do for the rest of us? It jacks up used car prices. So I think they're going to artificially get inflated if this continues, and it's not going to be better for the consumer. Sure, you might not have to haggle, but you're still getting screwed. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching. Till next time.